I never thought I'd be the guy to walk in on my wife, Emily, cheating on me. We'd been together for 5 years, engaged for 6 months, and everything seemed perfect, at least on the surface. Emily always had a bit of a bitchy edge, but I liked her fire. She was gorgeous, sharp-tongued, and knew exactly how to push my buttons in the right way. We had this plan to get married, and honestly, I was excited. I thought we had a good future ahead of us. That is, until I started noticing the little things, things I brushed off at first but gradually became impossible to ignore. It started about 2 weeks before the wedding. I'd catch her sneaking her phone away, texting someone, her eyes darting around like she was hiding something. She'd get defensive whenever I asked who she was talking to, say it was just her sister or some coworker. But her voice would go a little higher, her face a little too tense. I chalked it up to pre-wedding stress. Everyone gets a little edgy, right? Still, there was this nagging feeling deep down, like a little voice telling me to pay more attention. I noticed her, acting weird around her phone, hiding it more, locking it when I was nearby. She'd make excuses about work stuff or needing privacy, but I knew better. Something wasn't right. One night I decided to follow her. I didn't have a solid reason. It was more like a gut instinct. I waited until she slipped out after I went to bed, leaving her phone behind on the nightstand. I figured I'd just check her messages, see if I could find anything suspicious. I didn't expect to find what I did. As I scrolled through her texts, my stomach sank. There were messages filled with flirtatious language, promises of seeing each other soon, and even a few about keeping it secret because she didn't want me to find out. My hands were trembling and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. This wasn't just some innocent flirtation. This was full-blown cheating, and it was with my own brother, Jake. I couldn't believe it at first. My brother, Jake, the guy I trusted, the guy I'd grown up with. She'd been lying to me all along, and she had the nerve to tell me she loved me, that she was excited to be my wife just days before I found this. I felt so stupid, so betrayed. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her tell me it was just a mistake, that it meant nothing. But deep inside, I knew this was more than a mistake. It was a betrayal of everything we had built, everything I thought she was. That night, I just sat there, holding her phone, staring at the messages that felt like a punch in the face, knowing that my entire world was about to change forever. The next day, I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. I felt like I was walking around with a weight pressing down on my chest, crushing me bit by bit. I couldn't look at her without seeing the lies behind her pretty face. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know how to start. How do you even begin to tell your fiancée that her best friend, your own brother, is sleeping with her? That she's been lying to your face for weeks? I waited until she got home from work, trying to calm down, trying to think clearly. She strutted in, all confident and bitchy. As usual, throwing her purse down and cocking an eyebrow at me like I was the one overreacting again. I looked at her and I could see the smirk she was trying to hide. That's when I decided I had enough. I pulled her aside into the bedroom, shut the door, and just laid it all out. I told her I knew everything, the texts, the lies, the secret meetings. Her face froze for a second, then she blinked like I just punched her in the gut. She started with her usual gaslighting. "You're crazy, Jason. You're overthinking. It's just sex and it meant nothing. Jake and I were just friends who got carried away. It's not a big deal. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." But I wasn't buying it. I looked her dead in the eyes and told her I saw the messages. I told her I was done with her lies, that I knew she'd been cheating on me with my own brother, and that I never wanted to see her again if she thought she could get away with it. She melted down, started crying and throwing tantrums, trying to make me feel guilty. "You don't understand, Jason. Jake and I, it's complicated. We're just messing around, and it's not like I love him. It's just sex, okay? That's all it is. Don't make this into some huge betrayal. I'm sorry I lied, but it's not like I wanted to hurt you. You're overreacting." That's when I realized she wasn't even sorry. She was just trying to save her ass, trying to cover her tracks. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief. How could she lie so easily? How could she cheat on me, especially with Jake, my own flesh and blood? The pain was sharp. I walked out of that room feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. I didn't sleep that night. All I could do was think about the lies, the betrayal, how my future with her, the one I'd planned so carefully, had been a lie from the start. I wanted to believe she'd be ashamed, remorseful, that she'd come clean and apologize. But all I got was her bitchy, manipulative face telling me I was overreacting, that I didn't understand. That's when I realized I had to do something. I just didn't know what yet. The days that followed were a blur of anger, confusion, and a strange numbness. I couldn't believe I'd been played like a fool for so long. Every time I looked at Emily, I saw her smirk, her eyes twinkling with lies, and it made my stomach churn. I couldn't even be mad at her anymore. I was just disappointed. Deep down, I felt like I'd been stupid for trusting her so much. She was a bitch about everything, too. Tried calling me crazy, said I was insecure, that I was ruining what we had just because I found out about her affair. But I didn't care what she said anymore. The betrayal was too raw. I knew I couldn't just let this go. I needed to think about revenge, about making her understand what she'd done. I didn't want her to walk away thinking she'd gotten away with it. I started laying my plan out in my head, something subtle but effective. I didn't want to ruin her outright, not yet. I just wanted her to feel the pain, the shame of being caught. I decided I'd expose her in the most public way I could think of, maybe show her that I had every piece of evidence and that she'd lost control of the situation. I wasn't just going to cry and walk away. She'd regret what she did, I told myself. I spent days gathering everything. I already had her texts, but I needed more. I started to follow her, watching her every move. She'd go out with friends, always claiming she needed girl time, but I knew better now. I watched her meet Jake, saw them sneaking into hotels, sharing secret kisses, whispering sweet nothings in the dark. I recorded some of her calls, kept screen captures of their messages, and made sure I had proof that she'd been lying about the just sex thing. Every glance she threw my way, every fake apology, she was just a bitch trying to save herself. Meanwhile, she kept spinning her web of lies, trying to convince everyone she was innocent, that I was the crazy one. She even had the nerve to call me paranoid and jealous, which made my blood boil. I was furious, but I had to stay calm. I knew I couldn't just confront her blindly. I needed to wait for the perfect moment. I wanted her to realize she was caught not just by me, but by everyone around her. It was about making her feel small, exposed, and humiliated, something she so clearly deserved. Telling her I knew everything was just the beginning. The real payback would come when I finally made her see she'd lost everything: her pride, my trust, maybe even her marriage. The thought of that made me feel a little better, even as the ache in my chest stayed. The wedding was supposed to be a week away, and honestly, I thought I'd feel relief once I called everything off. But instead, I felt this simmering rage just underneath my skin, and a determination to make her suffer, even if just a little. I couldn't stand the thought of her walking down that aisle thinking she had fooled everyone, that she'd gotten away with her lies. I decided I'd make her regret every secret glance, every whispered lie, every moment she thought she was getting away with cheating on me with my brother. One afternoon, I arranged a little surprise for her. I knew her routine. She loved her bossy brunches with her friends, so I subtly followed her to a cafe downtown. I had my phone set up with a voice recorder and a camera just to catch her in the act again. By then, I'd learned enough about her patterns: when she was most vulnerable, when she was most herself. She thought she was untouchable, that she could lie and manipulate her way out of everything. Well, I wanted her to see herself through someone else's eyes. I waited until she saw her friends and started flirting with a guy at the next table. She was so bitchy, so dismissive. Her sharp tone, her sneers, her little smirks. She didn't notice I was recording her every word, every gesture. I watched her lie about her perfect life, how she'd brag about how she kept everything under control. I saw her laugh at her own lies like she was some queen of deception. I felt a kind of sick satisfaction knowing I had this all on tape, that she'd been so confident, so sure she'd get away with it. The moment I finally left, I felt a rush of adrenaline and disgust. I knew I couldn't just confront her with everything right now. I had to wait for the right time, the moment when she'd be at her most vulnerable, when her walls were down and her arrogance was shattered. I wanted her to see that she was nothing more than a liar and a cheat, that her perfect little life was built on lies and I was the one holding all the evidence. I went home, feeling cold but focused. I wasn't done yet. I had other tricks up my sleeve, and I was determined to make her see that her world was about to crumble. And when it did, she'd realize just how much she'd lost. By the time I finally decided to drop my cards, I made sure I had everything in place. All the recordings, screenshots, and even a few photos of her and Jake caught in some of their more intimate moments. I knew she'd spin a story, call me crazy or insecure, but I didn't care anymore. I'd waited long enough to see her bitchy little facade crack. The day came when I was ready to confront her in a way she wouldn't forget. I called her into the living room, kept my voice calm but firm. Told her I had something to show her, something she'd want to see. She looked suspicious, her expression tense, probably trying to figure out what I'd found. I played her the recordings first, her own voice admitting to the affair, laughing about sneaking around with Jake. Her eyes widened, then turned into thin slits framed by rage and denial. She started sputtering, throwing her usual blame. "You're crazy. You don't understand. It's just sex." But I wasn't giving her a break this time. I pressed play on another clip, her whispering sweet lies to Jake, saying she didn't care about me anymore. Her face went pale, then red with fury. She yelled, called me a psycho, a jealous idiot trying to gaslight me once again. But I was done listening. I told her she was a manipulative, bitchy woman who thought she could get away with everything because she was pretty and sharp-tongued. I told her I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. That I'd had enough of her lies, her cheating, her acting like she was the victim. I knew she was trying to turn things around, but I just looked at her coldly and told her it was over, that she'd never manipulate me again. Her eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of remorse. They were tears of rage and frustration. She screamed, called me all sorts of names, tried to say it was just sex, that she didn't love Jake, that it didn't mean anything. I didn't care what she said anymore. I just stared at her and realized how much I'd been blinded, how much I'd trusted her, and how deeply she'd betrayed me. The moment was surreal, like waking up from a nightmare I couldn't escape. I knew I'd made my choice. I wasn't going to let her destroy me with her lies anymore. I told her she could leave if she wanted. I was done playing her game. The house felt cold and empty after she stormed out, but I finally felt some sense of relief. I'd uncovered her lies, and now I could start healing from this mess. In the days that followed, everything changed. I didn't expect to feel relief, but somehow I did. The house was quiet without her bitchy comments and manipulative smirks. I knew she'd try to come back, maybe plead or lie her way out of it, but I was done. I realized I'd spent years trusting the wrong person, someone who lied, cheated, and betrayed me with my own brother. It was a brutal lesson, but one I needed to learn. I've come to understand that sometimes the biggest act of self-respect is walking away from someone who doesn't deserve you. Emily was a master at lying, twisting the truth, and pretending everything was fine. But I saw through her game. Her lies couldn't hide the truth anymore. I've learned that no matter how bitchy or manipulative someone is, their true nature will come out eventually. And when it does, you either confront it or let it destroy you. Right now, I'm focusing on rebuilding myself. I've cut ties with Emily and Jake, and I'm trying to move past the pain. It's not easy, but I know I'll be okay. I've realized that trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild, and sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away and start fresh. If there's one thing I want others to take from this, it's that you shouldn't ignore the signs. Don't let someone manipulate you into thinking everything's okay when it's not. Trust your gut. And when the betrayal finally comes out, be ready to face it head on. Because, in the end, the only person who truly has to live with your choices is you. And trusting yourself is the only way to survive the nightmare.